So the topic of surrogacy, and specifically surrogacy from celebrities, came up last week when we talked about Paris Hilton and that scene of her show where she changed her son's diaper for the first time when he's already a month old, and we found out that she procured her son via a surrogate. So now we have another example of that, and it's from the YouTube space. So YouTuber Shane Dawson, who was notoriously canceled back in 2020, has now posted about welcoming 2 twin boys via surrogate. And obviously, given that he is in a gay relationship, they only had options of surrogacy and adoption if they wanted to have kids. I find it incredibly suspect that he didn't adopt. However, given his background and controversies and suspicious past remarks, specifically about joking about pedophilia and zoophilia, I don't think that any adoption agency would have accepted him. After doing just basic research on his reputation, they would have found these things. So Pop Crave posted, YouTuber Shane Dawson and Ryland Adams have welcomed twin boys via surrogate. And I went to their Instagram post announcing this and saw a bunch of comments criticizing them. One said, there is zero excuse for a known PDF file to have any possibility to adopt a child, let alone 2. I don't know what happened that let you slip through the cracks, but people are 110% correct in being deeply alarmed about this and not waiting until it's too late.
Where does he live?
I believe that they moved from California to Colorado in the past year. Another said, how can someone with a long documented history of pedophilic statements and actions be allowed to adopt a surrogate child? Now, this is not adoption. And one reason why I'm glad that this is on everyone's timeline right now is because finally the conversation about surrogacy is shifting.
Yeah.
People are realizing that in these processes from for-profit companies, they don't do the same background checks on people that they do with adoption. And they make people, including the mothers who donate their eggs for IVF, the mothers who rent out their wombs to gestate these children for men who are in gay and therefore sterile relationships, and also the babies, they're all being commodified. All of these people in the process that make this possible are being made into commodities. And it's morally outrageous. And Allie Beth Stuckey especially has been railing against this on Twitter, and I love to see it. She said, the man who's joked about being a PDF file welcomed 2 children that he bought from a woman they chose out of a catalog. Pray for these boys. And it's true that if you're using any surrogacy agency, you look through, first of all, a catalog of women whom you will purchase an egg from. So for that, they're selecting for women who are highly educated, certain physical characteristics like, say she has to have blonde hair and blue eyes. Sounds a little bit eugenic, right? Yeah. And they select for these women who are in financially desperate situations. Usually, Ukraine is a big hotspot for this because it's an incredibly poor country, but still makes sure that people can get white babies through surrogacy. And then they gestate in the womb of usually an American surrogate who is not the same genetic lineage of the egg or the sperm. That's why there are so many instances in which the mother's body rejects the fetus, and there are many instances of miscarriages and complications because of that. Allie Beth Stuckey also posted this picture of Shane Dawson's husband, Ryland Adams, laying in a hospital bed next to their new baby. And this is something that Pete Buttigieg and his husband, Chasten, also did notoriously, posing in a hospital bed as if you were the one that gave birth to the child.
Is that because they still...
It's absolutely insane.
They still encourage skin-to-skin contact?
Well, what I'm seeing in this photo is just Ryland is laying in a separate bed from the baby. That's not really the same thing. You can't really make that argument. Allie Beth Stuckey said he and his partner bought this baby from one woman and rented the womb of another woman. Also, he could pose for a photo pretending to be exhausted on a hospital bed after having absolutely nothing to do with the origin of this baby's life. Yeah. And normally I think cancel culture is BS, but in his case, I think anyone with a conscience would have retreated from being a public figure permanently after people found out that he did all of these things. I mean, he joked about sexual activity with his cat. He also made a video where he mimicked masturbating to a picture of 11-year-old Willow Smith. And in fact, the Smith family had to respond to that being resurfaced. He's made plenty of jokes about being a raging porn addict. And also his quote unquote husband, Ryland Adams, has this really disturbing penchant for cross-dressing at every opportunity. And if you pull up his Instagram, you'll see like half of his photos are of him cross-dressing. And one of those instances was back in, I believe, 2016 or 2017. This was back when Bad Baby, if you remember her, Danielle Brugoli, was 13 years old when she was first coming onto the scene. And Ryland dressed up as Bad Baby in this provocative costume with a crop top and prosthetic breasts. And Shane said to Ryland, "Don't you think this is a little creepy? I mean, she's 13. And Ryland said, "I mean, she doesn't look 13. Have you seen her jogs?" And then he said, "Let's just pretend I'm 18. And he proceeded to do all these provocative dances, making sexually suggestive jokes. And at the time, you'd wonder why so many people excused this and looked past it for so long. But at the time, like, his audience was mainly teenagers who probably wouldn't know better and thought he was just being edgy. And also, he was on the top of the YouTube food chain. So he really could get away with whatever he wanted until in 2020 when this all was brought to light. And yes, the fact that he didn't go through the route of adoption is telling. I think any adoption agency doing a background check on this guy would immediately reject him.
I was wondering about that, about what that, so I looked it up and it says all of the criteria for it looks like it's legal. So like it's legalese, right? Whether you've been convicted of a crime, right? So
Sure.
you'd have to come at the later stages, I guess, character witnesses, all of these things that come into play beforehand.
No, yeah, like
that's insane.
He has not been charged or convicted with any actual crimes. But I think taking a cursory look at all of these remarks he's made, it's worrying that he is now responsible for the care of two babies who are not even related to him. And also, these kids are being robbed of growing up with both a mother and a father. And I think that that in itself is wrong. And I also, I don't support surrogacy when it's a homosexual couple going about it, but also I oppose surrogacy when it's a heterosexual couple that happens to be infertile, or they're just electing for their own comfort and the luxury to not naturally conceive a child. I oppose both. And if I personally were in the situation where my only options for having children were surrogacy or adoption, I would either adopt or just accept that for my life and God's will for my life, that kids were not going to be part of it. And I don't understand why we're celebrating the selfish whims of public figures who want to, I mean, even just posting this picture with their faces showing, putting their full legal names out there, getting all of this clout off of documenting and vlogging the whole surrogacy IVF journey. They're narcissists. Yeah. And I'm really happy to see that on all sides of the political spectrum, people are united in being alarmed and worried about Shane Dawson having children. whether it's because of ethical concerns about surrogacy. I've seen a lot more people changing their mind about this because it's such a clear commodification of women's bodies. And in an age where we're supposed to be advocating for women's rights, this is suspiciously off the table for discussion. So I'm really glad that this is being brought to the forefront, and people are starting to ask questions like, should we really be playing God in a process that is supposed to be natural? And it obviously has deeper ethical implications and complications that are gonna need to be reckoned with as we go into the future. But what would you say about it?
I don't have strong feelings on all of the ethical concerns of what you just said, but for him, yes. For what I just watched, given the video and stuff like that, given the type of things that, like, saying stuff like that could get you disqualified from having a job, I imagine that it would also disqualify you from being able to have a child through means like that, right? It's just watching stuff like that makes my skin crawl. That's my take. Watching that stuff made my skin crawl.
Yeah. Last week, from our discussion about Paris Hilton and her choosing to use a surrogate for her children, Libby, who was on the show with us, gave a really good explanation of why it's absolutely anti-feminist to support renting the wombs of women and purchasing their eggs, so that rich people essentially can enjoy the luxury of not gestating and caring for their own children. So if you haven't seen that YouTube short we posted yet, you should watch it, because I was in full agreement with her, and I felt like I was on an island on that issue for a long time because people just weren't talking about it. But now more and more celebrities and now YouTubers are electing for surrogacy when they have really no justification to do so. And I think it needs to be called out.
Yeah, that always kind of is crazy to me. That one in particular, when you see that celebrities who can have children choose to do it because it's safer for their body to do that so that they can basically stay camera ready for a longer period of time. Is definitely an unsettling trend that we're seeing in the world these days. It's funny because I watch old episodes of TV shows like The X-Files, which addressed concepts of essentially eugenics early in the show, and had a negative ring to it, right? It had a negative connotation in those early episodes, especially the episode Eve. I think I mentioned that during that episode that we were on. And it's just so foreign to me because I don't have any kids, but I watch stuff like this. And even a person as neutral as me on a lot of things, you can watch a video like the one we just watched, which I don't even know we were allowed to show on here. I saw other people have at least portions of that played when discussing this topic of what he said in that segment, right? Mm-hmm. Not knowing whether that can be played. I don't know if somebody in the comments can let us know, would the fact that he doesn't have any actual convictions prevent him from having a kid through adoption? I don't know. I don't know if the fact that all of this stuff is secondhand, it's not legal. Can they use that as grounds to dismiss his ability to have kids? Because he's financially viable and he has no legal convictions that would prevent him from doing so. But there's a gap between legal and moral.
Right. I think that it's just horrendous that there are so many parents or potential parents who would jump at the opportunity to adopt a baby and are denied the opportunity to do so because maybe they have like one arrest on their record from like decades ago, or they're not exorbitantly wealthy. Like, that's wrong.
In the chats, no mandates, not a Fed, says they can deny on standing. So,
for any reason,
let's hope that they can that they should be able to deny for something like that.
I don't think like not having a conviction should make you entitled to adopt a child.
And okay, so John Barrett says he probably would just say he was playing his part as an entertainer. That's what I was talking about. So I had no background. I didn't watch Shane Dawson. Obviously, I know who he is secondhand because other people talk about him, right? But I didn't have any context as to what he was like as a YouTuber in any way. So there is a gap there when I talk about this because I don't know. I didn't watch any of his content, but it seems like something that somebody like him could say very easily. Like, look, I was being edgy. It was 2016. It was a different time. And whether he's being real or not, whether he's lying or not, a lot of people would buy that because it was a different time. And that's scary too, because it could hide a more nefarious nature if it wasn't just that. We don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people accepted that explanation because they have a weird parasocial connection to him, and they'll kind of just excuse anything he does or says.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.